This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Bucs look to snap a 3-game losing streak tonight when they welcome Atlanta to Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee has been blown out, all 3 of the losses, including by an undermanned Celtics squad. The losing streak has them sitting 4 games out of the final play-in tournament spot. One of those teams 4 games ahead of them is the Hawks, with about a month left here in the regular season. Tip tonight is set for 7. Turning to Wisconsin, they're going to face off against Maryland tonight at the Kohl Center in the final home game of the season. Badgers come in 12-6 in Big Ten play, essentially locked into the number 5 or number 6 seed in the conference tournament next week in Chicago. Wisconsin heavily reliant on three-point shooting, as evidenced by their loss against Oregon last week when shooting 31% from 3, and their win over Washington when they shot 45%. Braden Carrington says the only way for those bounce backs is to keep shooting.
It's honestly like a live or die mentality about three-pointer. Obviously, you don't want to necessarily actually die by that. You want to have other ways, but, we're not going to stop shooting. We have a lot of confident scorers on our team and shooters in general, so they're going to keep going up, and I don't think anybody's worried when we have an off night. I think we know we can find ways to score and still be in these games.
Tip tonight is at 7.
At a time when children are in crisis, the Kids Mental Health Foundation envisions a future where mental health is a vital part of growing up, and support starts with all of us. At home, at school, at practice, everywhere kids are. The Kids Mental Health Foundation is the leading organization promoting mental health for children in the U.S. and has free tools and information developed by experts.
Having those resources is the same as the CPR class to me. We're trying to save a life here.
Check out kidsmentalhealthfoundation.org to get started.
Well, the Packers are bringing Chris Brooks back on a 2-year deal worth nearly $5 million. The running back was set to be a restricted free agent, had nearly 200 yards from scrimmage last year, also on a lot of special teams. And Wisconsin announced the hire of Ari Confessor as their new wide receivers coach. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
I found out that day that this was a possibility, and I say it that way though because it wasn't a certainty at that point.
Was he like weighing retirement?
He wasn't weighing retirement. The Bears were trying to convince him not to.
Okay.
They didn't want him to retire, and there was some I think there was, so basically I wanted to see if maybe the Bears would succeed in that because he's on a good contract. He's only 27. The outlook for the team looks great. I mean, there's a million ways that you can go about trying to convince somebody, but I think that you couldn't really argue with all of the things that mattered to Drew and the reason that he made this decision, which was not lightly by any stretch of the imagination.
But remember when Ben Johnson signed him and talked about him the first time, he said, this guy's going to be the quarterback of our offensive line. And the investment was paid off.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
All right, 2 sound bites there in the intro, both pertaining to the surprise retirement of Drew Dahlman, the Bears center, which we learned about earlier this week. That's where I want to start tonight because it pertains to the Packers. They lost 2 games to the Bears this year. The Bears just won the NFC North. The rivalry feels very much alive in a way that it hasn't in a while. So that's where I want to begin. The first voice was Carmen Vitale, who's been on the show. I believe she was doing the CH Go podcast. I never know how to pronounce. There's all of these podcasts now. It's a whole network of different individual sports markets, and the content is good, but the whole thing, just like every other company that starts in 2025, 2026, they just take out the vowels. And I don't know how this started with Visco, by the way. I don't like this trend where it's like, we'll just take out all the vowels except for the last one. So there's CH Go and DNVR. But it's that you're probably familiar with some of their podcasts if you follow sports or if you're on the internet. So that was Carmen Vitale talking about how his decision kind of came to pass. The Bears were trying to convince him not to retire. And then that second voice was Matt Spiegel on 670 The Score, very clearly outlining like this guy was brought in to be the quarterback of the Bears O-line. That was the strategy. That was the thought process as explained by Ben Johnson, and it worked. He was great, and the Bears O-line was so much improved this year, and now he's retiring in the assumed prime of his career at age 27. It's a big deal. So I want to talk about that. We could talk about how it pertains to the division and the Packers, and that'll get the show started. Jesse Temple's going to be here in about 90 minutes to talk Badgers, lots of different things. Aaron Rodgers is on the McAfee show today. A couple of funny sound bites. I'll play that for you. I thought Lori Nickel went at the Bucks at the Journal-Sentinel today with both barrels. Really good story. We'll pick at that. So a good variety of topics, and your calls are welcome. If you want to bring anything else, we can probably leave the vinyl flooring talk just contained in yesterday's show. But then again, like, I'm here to please. So if we want to If we want to continue talking about that, we can. 608-321-1670 is the number to call and text, and the live stream is up. It starts on the Wisco Sports Zone app, streams in a bunch of different places, YouTube, Facebook, on my Twitter as well, at Wisco Grant. So I'm not intimately familiar with everything going on in the Bears organization, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm an expert on the Bears O-line. Drew Dahlman is retiring, and here's how it's going to submarine their whole franchise, and this is why it's good for the Packers, right? I don't know. I'll give you a little background because I need a little background too. Courtney Cronin's really good. She wrote this at ESPN. Chicago Bears quarterback nicknamed each of his O-linemen after a Marvel superhero, and he said that Drew Dahlman is the strongest Avenger, right? So she's writing, and you should go read this whole story. I'm going to skip the Caleb Williams part just to kind of get to the nuts and bolts. The stunning move became official on Tuesday after whispers about Dahlman's plans generated a quiet buzz at the combine. An offensive line that ranked first in pass block win rate, fifth in run block win rate, and led Chicago to an NFC North championship suddenly is missing a vital piece. And Dahlman's absence won't be the only significant void. Left tackle Ozzie Trapillo, who injured his knee in the wildcard round, will miss most of the 2026 season. So again, this is why I'm reading you the story, because I need this background too. They were the balls in pass protection. They were the balls in run blocking, and they were a great ground and pound physical team, which is what Ben Johnson wanted to establish. The center, Drew Dahlman, was a huge part of that. They just signed him after he left Atlanta to be the quarterback. That was very successful. He's now retiring. And remember, their left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo, blew his knee in the wildcard round, so he's going to miss a lot of this upcoming year as well. So as the Bears are entering the postseason last year into that game against the Packers, the O-line is a strength. There's no reason to believe it won't be for years to come. They've figured out that position for what feels like the first time in forever. Just again, watching from the distance as Packers fans, but they've been shuffling guys and drafting guys and trying to figure it, and they just can't do it. Well, they did it, and now their center is retiring, and their left tackle pops his knee in the playoffs. So going into the playoffs, Bears fans were like, this thing is set. They finally figured it out. Now you're going into the offseason. You don't know who your left tackle is going to be for most of the next year, and now you got to replace your center, who was so valuable last year. And Courtney Cronin continues. In just over 2 months, the Bears lost 40% of their starting O-line, a unit that catapults itself to the top of the team's priority list as free agency nears. Dahlman, a 5-year veteran, played every single snap during his lone season in Chicago after signing a 3-year, $42 million contract as a free agent. He was the final piece of a week-long project to flip the interior of the O-line in March 25 after the Bears traded for Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. Remember, they traded for 2 guys, they signed another, they attacked it. And at the time, I remember thinking, well, because the Packers have never historically, this has changed in the last year or two, but historically, they've never been a team that's needed to spend big on the O-line to bring in guys or really use a ton of premium picks. Now, they've used upper picks, but their last 2 left tackles have been 7th-round picks and 4th-round picks. They've been flexible. They've moved guys around. So anytime I see a team spend a bucket of money in free agency on the O-line or make big trades, I look at it a little sideways. I didn't think that the Bears would fail necessarily, but again, you always look sideways because if you're spending big money on free agents, remember those players are out there for a reason. Dahlman and it's available for a reason, or Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson. So I kind of looked at it, it's like, well, maybe it'll work. Well, it worked. And now 40% of that O-line is gone because Ozzie Trapillo is hurt, and Drew Dahlman just decides in the prime of his career, just after signing this contract, which is a pretty good contract for the Bears, 3 years, $42 million. I'd take that deal if the Packers could get a stud center for that. And now those guys are gone. The quest of the coach Ben Johnson and general manager Ryan Poles to fix the Bears' weakest link paid immediate dividends. After taking a league-high 68 sacks as a rookie, Williams was just sacked 24 times in 2025, the 3rd fewest in the league. Now, part of that is he's really mobile and athletic, but the O-line was much improved. The Bears boasted the number 3 rushing offense, while their passing attack ranked 10th. Great at running. They improved at passing as the year went along. They protected Caleb Williams. So why do I bring this up? Well, I mean, the connection between the Packers and the Bears is obvious, right? Anything that's bad news for the Bears is inherently good news for the Packers and vice versa. This is now a need for the Bears going into the offseason that they wouldn't have expected a month or 2 ago. They didn't know their O-line was going to need a new center and a left tackle. So clearly we can talk about the ramifications of, other teams in the division getting worse is good for the Packers. Duh. I also think this is an interesting case study in how hard it is to be a sustained contender in the NFL year after year after year. It's so friggin' hard because as a high-level team, as a contending team, you're paying good players. The Bears are eventually going to have to pay Caleb Williams just as the Packers paid Aaron Rodgers, just like they're paying Jordan Love. When you have a high-level receiver, And we'll see if, they've been paying DJ Moore, but at some point, maybe they pay Luther Burden or Roma Dunze. I'm not sure. If Colston Loveland continues to be as good as he looked as a rookie, they're going to have to pay him. Defensively, right there, you have to pay a stud linebacker or a stud edge rusher. Because if you're a contender, you have good players get paid. So you need to pay them, which means you need to make tough decisions in position groups or with players that you maybe don't have money to pay. That's hard, right? Your schedule gets harder when you're a contender. Instead of playing, the third best team in other divisions or the fourth best team, now you're playing the first best team in those divisions, and the league's going to look at you and say, we want you on prime time to play the Chiefs randomly or to play the Bills. Like, you just a game or two every year. Because you're a top build team, because you're a contender, you're going to have a game or two that's kind of thrown at you that's more difficult than you would be if you weren't a good team. So we know as Packers fans, it's hard to contend. It's hard enough to contend when you don't have players getting injured. Ozzie Trapillo. Or where you don't have players all of a sudden like, he's retiring? Like, how old was B.J. Raji when he retired? The Packers coming off of that Super Bowl in 2010, right? You thought they're set up for years to come, right? Well, eventually Nick Collins gets hurt, and that was a couple years later. Did Nick Collins get hurt in 2013? Maybe 2014? It might have even been earlier. I know Jermichael Finley suffered that injury, I believe in 2014, and I think it was against the Browns. I might be wrong. But the Packers in this window of contention, and they had a long window of contention with Aaron Rodgers. Basically a career-ending injury for Jermichael Finley, basically a career-ending injury for Nick Collins. Later on, what would turn out to be an essential career-ending injury for David Bakhtiari. And then here and there, it's like, wait, what? B.J. Raji's retiring? Drew Dahlman is retiring. Okay, so now we got to find a new. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to Drew Dahlman. If he wants to look out for his health and he feels, hey, I've made enough money, it's prioritized for me. I'm not criticizing him, but from a team building perspective, like, that's frustrating as hell. It's like, man, we're already trying to figure out if we can pay this guy. We're already trying to figure out if we have enough money to go out and sign this guy. Our schedule's going to get harder. We're setting aside our finances to prepare to pay our quarterback. And, we have guys from our coaching staff who are getting poached because our coaching staff is good. So other organizations want a piece of it. From our front office, the Bears lost one of their top guys under Ryan Poles. And what's that? Our center's retiring. Oh, God. This to me, not only is interesting because the Packers and the Bears are directly competing, but I think this is such an interesting case study of this is why it's hard to win in the NFL. Not just hard to win, but it's hard to do it year after year after year after year, because this league is designed the very way this league is designed financially, the way the draft is designed, the way the schedule is designed. It's designed to prevent you from being really, really good and really successful every year. And then every once in a while, it's like, B.J. Raji's, he's retiring. Drew Dahlman he's just retiring. He's decided he doesn't want to do this anymore. Calvin Johnson's just retiring. Now, of course, the Lions sucked for most of the time, so it's not like the Lions were like, man, we have so many good players. How are we going to pay them all? Calvin Johnson's retiring. A little bit different, I know. Apples and oranges, but still both fruits, both football teams that are trying to build and retain talent. So it's a fascinating case study of how hard it is to sustain success in the NFL. I think what the Bears are building is sustainable. I don't know that means they'll win. How many games do they win this year? 12, 13? I don't know that means that they'll win 12 or 13 games next year. But I don't think the Bears are going to fall off the earth and become the next version of the Commanders. And I know a lot of Packers people or a lot of people are looking at the Bears like regression candidate. I don't know. The Bears have a lot of good young talent. The Commanders very quickly became one of the older teams in football. They traded picks for Marshawn Lattimore, who they just cut. They paid Bobby Wagner and others. And I understand when you think you have Jaden Daniels and you're close, you go for it. I get it. It doesn't always work. Oftentimes in football, it doesn't, which is what Ted Thompson would probably, tell you if he was here and he was in the studio with a microphone. He'd say, I told you so, right? It's not just as easy to just trade a bunch of picks for good players and sign a bunch of players and just win a Super Bowl. Just push your chips into the middle of the table. It's not that easy. So a good case study. I think what the Bears are building is sustainable because I don't like him. But I think Ben Johnson has it, man. And I think he has it just on a level past play calling. I keep playing you that cut of Ben Johnson where he talks about we're starting next year. It's a brand new team. It's a brand new season. We go back to being right at the bottom, right? And here, let me see if I can find that cut again. I found it yesterday on the fly. I'm pretty organized, but I don't always label things as smartly as I should. But like a soundbite like this, I hear this and I'm like, man, Ben Johnson he just gets it. He understands it. He's not just a play caller, but I think he understands team building and culture and all of that. Here's this cut from Ben Johnson that I keep going back to. I think it's really smart.
So you guys are going to be able to build off this, and that
there is no building off of this. We go back to square one. We're back at the bottom again, and that's really all 32 teams. If you feel otherwise, you're probably missing the big picture. You know, we're back at. We got to start from scratch. We got to start from the fundamentals. You know, a lot of guys talked about how difficult this training camp was. I didn't feel like it was anything out of my ordinary. They know what the expectation is. They know what the process is that we believe in as a coaching staff. And so I think more than anything else, they're going to know what they're getting themselves into. And yet we got to dig a little bit deeper. We got to work a little bit harder. We got to give a little bit more if we want to take this thing over the top. I mean, it's no different. You're trying to lose weight. You're trying to lose 50 pounds. The first 30 is the easiest 30. You know, the last 20, that's the hard part. And so we did a nice job this year, but it's not enough. We got to do more.
So I just listened to that soundbite and I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it. He understands, it sounds like, how to build a program, how to set expectations. It's not like it started sunshine and roses. It started really frustratingly. There were some moments where Ben Johnson was sparring with the media and he got it going and the team figured it out. Like, I think what the Bears are building is built to last. I don't know that they win 13 games next year, but I don't expect 2 losses on the O-line to completely submarine the thing, and I don't expect them to be the next Commanders. However, one thing that I would say to Bears fans, and one thing that I will circle and keep in mind with the injury of Ozzie Trapillo, he's going to miss a lot of next year, and the retirement of Drew Dahlman, which is, I think, one of the bigger stories in the NFL this week. A good program, a good coach, a good organization with a good culture, you can lose guys. You can afford to let guys go in free agency. The Patriots did it forever. The Packers did it forever. Now, it helps to have the quarterback and the coach, but I think even teams with lesser quarterbacks or even, you know, a different host of coach, if the organization is built correctly and there's the foundation and the culture and all of that, and I think Ben Johnson's got it. Sorry, Packers fans, but he does, I think. I don't know anything to a certainty, but that's just my read on it. I think that thing is sturdy. So you can lose players. You can have a guy retire. You can have a guy get injured. You can have a guy leave in free agency, and you will be okay. Why the Dahlman retirement and why the Trapillo injury are interesting to me or something worth monitoring is because that retirement and that injury, those losses, 40% of the O-line, those changes, those absences next year strike at the very heart, the very culture of what turned the Bears around this year. Caleb Williams was great, and Ben Johnson's a good play caller, and Luther Burden popped, and Colson Loveland popped, and they had good players all over the place. Don't get me wrong. Bears core at the center of what they did and how they succeeded last year was they got the O-line right. It was stable. They could pass protect, they could run block, and they could build everything off of that. And you can lose a player here. You can lose a good sturdy organization can afford to lose guys. But if the 2 absences on the O-line decays or nicks or cuts away at the very core of what made them successful, well, that actually can set an organization back. Look no further than Ben Johnson's former team, the Lions, this year. They've lost players. They've made changes. They've had different coordinators. In my estimation, the reason the Lions were the 4th place team in the division, some one-score luck and some flukiness, sure, that's football. Their O-line fell off. They dealt with injuries and retirements, and they couldn't lean on the O-line the way they've leaned on it for years. And, wouldn't you know it, they traded David Montgomery for some picks and an O-lineman, and Dan Campbell and others come out and say, we need to fix our O-line. We can't have a bad O-line. We can't have issues on the O-line like we did last year. So the Lions are already jumping to address. They're already jumping to fix it. But just a little step back on the O-line at the core at what made them great. Not just a good wide receiver or a good corner or a good tight end. Good organizations can afford to lose guys. Even the best organizations can't afford to lose the thing that makes them them. And the Lions, through their turnaround with Dan Campbell, they've had good skill guys, they've had good defensive players, but at the heart of it, at the core of it, it's been the O-line. And that was at the core of what the Bears did last year. So the Bears could win 15 games next year. And honestly, I wouldn't be that surprised because I think Ben Johnson's got it, and I think Caleb Williams is pretty darn good. But Ozzie Trapillo and Drew Dahlman not being available, that's 40% of the O-line, and the O-line was the core of what it was, the pillar around which everything else was built. So just monitor that. So just watch it. That's become a big priority for the Bears. And I don't think they can afford to go into next season with an O-line that's significantly worse than last year, because that's their core. That's what made them them. Same is true of the Packers, by the way. They got to figure out their O-line as well. We could talk about this, talk about any Packers-Bears storylines or dynamics that you find interesting. The Packers also, I think something that's worth talking about tonight, they came to a deal with Chris Brooks. And I think running back is a sneaky need that we really haven't addressed too much. So we'll talk some Packers. We can tie in the Bears, the rest of the NFL or the NFC North, but I want to begin with football after talking some Bucks to begin the show last night. I'll get to your phone calls after a very short word from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. Your calls right after this at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
But remember when Ben Johnson signed him and talked about him the first time, he said, this guy's going to be the quarterback of our offensive line. And the investment was paid off. That's the thing. Like Dahlman, he didn't miss a snap the entire season. 1,154 snaps.
That's crazy.
159 more in the playoffs. And then add this, the Bears ran more plays under center with their quarterback than any team in the NFL except the Rams. And this is for a quarterback who had to learn how to even do that, you know? And we focused on the Caleb part of that, but think about how consistent and dependable and solid Drew Dahlman was to play every single snap, and for Caleb to have that many snaps under center, it's just so unbelievably important. So as you're talking about the free agent possibilities, I get where you end up with wanting the very, very best one. And I don't know how much our listeners have familiarized themselves with all the free agent targets, but Linderbaum is far and away the best center available, as Drew Dahlman was last year.
A little bit more from Matt Spiegel, just some good background on the importance of Drew Dahlman, the shocking nature of his retirement, and now a massive need for the Bears going into this offseason. Their left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo's hurt, blew out his knee in the wild card round, or popped his knee. I'm not sure of the exact injury, but it's a significant one. And now Drew Dahlman, who was a center who played every snap, was the quarterback of their O-line, Ben Johnson's words, is gone. Tyler Linderbaum is set to be a free agent. I don't know that Baltimore lets him go. It doesn't seem like a Baltimore thing to do. We also learned today there's some good NFL. There's no massive, huge, sexy NFL storylines. Like there's, Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. Although the Tom Brady, Alex Guerrero story today is pretty wild. So I guess that's a pretty big one. It's a lot of players that aren't necessarily household names that are making headlines. Linderbaum, Dahlman, and center Connor McGovern from the Bills. Some reporting today that he feels like he's out in Buffalo. So that could be another really high-level center that's available. I was just reading about that at The Athletic earlier today from Tim Graham. So Linderbaum, McGovern, now Dahlman's out. The Packers need a center. The Bears need a center. There might be a couple available. Whether it's free agency or the draft or internal improvements, the Packers and the Bears both have needs on the O-line. There's going to be some shuffling and some spots to be replaced or filled or improved. And I think the team that nails the O-line this offseason, there's good reason to believe, okay, well, give me that team next year. Because I like both quarterbacks. I like the defense is about the same. They both have limitations, but they're different limitations. I think if the Bears figure out the O-line and the Packers don't, the Bears will be better. And vice versa. Oh, yeah, and by the way, the Lions need to figure out their O-line. That's a big part of this offseason as well. They already started with the trade they made yesterday. Very interesting week in the NFL. And again, it's no like Joe Burrow didn't get traded or something like that, but a lot of good players. Trent McDuffie got traded to the Rams today. This has been a juicy week around the NFL. And it's only Wednesday, Captain. All right, some of your calls. 608-321-1670. I'm scared. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
I always love a surprise retirement.
Yeah, it's just, and Cone Roller, this is what I tried to highlight in the first segment. It's like, do you know how hard these GMs work, how impossible that job is? Do you know how pissed they have to be when, like, Brian, there's a call for you, and he answers the phone, and it's like, BJ Raji, you're retiring. Oh, Jesus. Like, on top of everything else. But it happens a good amount in the NFL.
Yeah, you don't have to look too much further than Chris Borland, former legend, Wisconsin legend. He retired, 2 years into his NFL career?
Yeah, and wasn't there another linebacker? Someone mentioned this on the live stream. It was in the same offseason as another retirement, one of their other elite players, that same offseason. So it's another wild card in a league where it's already so hard to build a team.
Yeah. There's a lot of takes that are flying on, like, do you get mad at the player? Like, how are Bears fans expected to react to this? Like, I don't know. I think retiring at 27, especially as an O-lineman, is a little weak sauce.
I mean, you can have a take on it if you'd like. Like, I think of Jason Whitlock, like he's probably cooking, if he's even talking about Drew Dahlman in 2026, which he's probably not, because I don't even know how sports centric he is anymore. But there are people like within the football world that hammered Andrew Luck. There's going to be people who are like, it's his personal choice, good for him. And then there's other people, it's like, that's not what a football player does. He's not going to get paid the money that he's due. So like, that's the trade-off. He gives up the money. I think that's a fair trade-off. It's just such a massive obstacle for the team. Like when Andrew Luck retired, like the Colts of that building had to be, you got to be effing kidding me, man. But they give the money back. I guess you can have whatever opinion on it you'd like.
Yeah. At least it's just a center for the Bears. I don't see them having many issues fixing this.
I think they'll figure it out.
Ben Johnson has stabilized that place a little bit. The Lovie Smith Bears, the Mark Trestman Bears, this would shatter them. But
I think so.
Ben Johnson's a good head coach, so.
I think so too. And I think he's a great play caller. I might even trust his culture building, leadership, program building. At this point, I believe in it more than I believe in it with Matt LaFleur. And the Packers have got to figure out at least 2 spots on their O-line. Now, not a surprise retirement. They've been planning for this, so that's a little bit of an advantage. But the Packers have a lot to figure out on their offensive line, too.
Yeah, if the Bears are interested in Aaron Banks coming down to Chicago and playing center, like, by all means, let's package a 2nd-round pick with that or something. Get him out of here.
Elton Jenkins off an injury should be back to peak form. I think it's so interesting that the Packers, the Lions, and the Bears are all like on a quest to figure out their O-lines this offseason. Should be fun to follow. Let's see who spends money. Let's see who makes trades. Let's see who relies on internal candidates, and let's see who attacks it really hard in the draft. I think it should be a great gauge this offseason between these 3 franchises who all have offensive line questions.
Yeah, and I'll say whoever has the best O-line figured out coming into the season are going to be NFC North favorites.
I think so.
It starts and ends in the trenches.
You're absolutely right. Not to transition, Cone, do you think Isaac Gard should start tonight?
Why?
It's senior night.
Oh, no, probably not.
Okay, that's fair.
He's
fair.
not that good. So
we talked about this morning on the morning show. You're probably correct. You're probably correct.
But Aaron Rodgers, do you have 60 seconds on Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, absolutely. We might talk about that next. You can lead us into our next segment because I cut some sound from his McAfee hit today.
I think what he said about staying in good shape is 100% spot on. I think too many times men get in these relationships and just let themselves go. And what does that do for the women? Blah. So, Aaron Rodgers staying active, staying fit, staying sexy, nothing wrong with that. I love it.
I also get the sense, have you talked about your marital status, Cone? I believe I saw pictures. I think we congratulated you on the show for getting engaged.
Yes, I'm an engaged man.
Do you get some juice from in conversation saying my fiance? Because I gather that Aaron Rodgers gets some juice from being able to say my wife. Is that a thing that exists?
Maybe at first, when you haven't seen somebody in a while, you're like, oh, my fiance, and they're like, what? When did that happen? Okay. That's always like a good conversation starter. Sure. I'm a traveling salesman. That's just easy, quick spark. Hey, I need this deal so I can pay for a wedding. Yeah. My fiance has expensive taste.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you get a little bit of a jolt.
Okay. All right. You've set us up perfectly for our next segment. Cone Roller, I appreciate you. Thanks for the call.
Absolutely. And it is confirmed Aaron Rodgers' wife is real. The haters can be quiet now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, Cone. Thank you for the call. Cone Roller, everybody. So let's put a pin in the NFC North Packers, Bears, Lions talk. I agree with that Cone take. Let's leave that conversation there today. I think the retirement of Drew Dahlman, paired with the injury to Ozzie Trapilo, the move that the Lions made yesterday, shipping David Montgomery out for a couple of picks and a young O-lineman, and now our eyes look to the Packers. What do you got? We think Jordan Morgan's going to take over at left tackle. Okay. Who's playing left guard? Who's playing center? Is Belton your right guard? Zach Tom's your right tackle. All 3 of these teams in the North, which I think have a lot of similarities. I would put all of 3 of the Packers, the Bears, and Lions, let's say they're all 10-win teams. The difference of who's going to win a couple more or a couple less, I think rests in the ability of these 3 organizations to figure the O-line out this offseason. And all 3 of them have to do it. All 3 of their O-lines. Now, the Bears just waited until now. The Bears O-line was great all year, and then their left tackle gets hurt, and their center retires. The Packers O-line struggled all year. The Lions O-line struggled all year. And now all of these teams are in the same spot where they got to replace 1, 2, at least spots on this line. And I think the North will, crazy things can happen. But I think the North next year will really depend on whether it's the Lions, the Bears, or the Packers, who does the best job figuring out their O-line. That's how I think this division, that's where it starts to me next year. I love that take. We'll revisit it throughout free agency, throughout any trades, throughout the draft. I love that framing. I think that's going to be a good way for us to talk about the North this offseason. All right, Aaron Rodgers is on the McAfee show today. I'll give you a Steelers take. We can have a little fun. He talked about his wife. Cone mentioned why he's staying in shape. It's because he wants his wife to, so we'll talk about that next as well. A little Aaron Rodgers talk. It'll feel like old times. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. A couple of texts following up on our first topic of the show. About to have some fun with some Aaron Rodgers cuts. He's on the Pat McAfee show today. Johnny Cribbage says, G, Bears and Johnson/Williams combo will not be below 11-7 for the next 5 years. Can the Pack stay above that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think we were spoiled with the Packers for a long time, and they were good for a long time with Aaron Rodgers. I wonder if at any point there was one other good quarterback in the division or one other elite coach in the division, if the Packers would consistently win 10 games. Now, remember when there's only a 17-game schedule, so winning 10 games, going 10-6 was like the floor. You know, the division's not what it was. I thought the Lions were pretty darn good this year. They weren't perfect, but I thought they were pretty darn good. And they won what? 9 games? 8 games? The Vikings had a disaster at quarterback. They won 9 games. Like, that's a legit outfit with a good coach. The Bears are a legit outfit. The Lions, the Packers. You have 4 legit teams. So to say that any team, even if you believe in Ben Johnson and even if you believe in Caleb Williams at the highest level, like you think they're both the balls, like Caleb's going to win MVPs, Ben Johnson's going to be the next McVay. Like, even if that's what you think, I still have a hard time thinking that I can't buy into they're going to win 11 games for at least the next 5 years. I'm not telling you they're going to win 6. But the way the North is, there's just no freebies in the North. There used to be freebies. There used to be freebies everywhere, left, right, and center. When Rodgers was just winning the division every year. And the Packers were good and Rodgers was unbelievable. So I'm not taking away the credit. I just don't know that we're going to see a team in the North stay consistently at 11 wins. It's pretty freaking hard to do. Johnny Cribbage also says, won't Dahlman return in August? Maybe. That's the other thing here. Like, can the Bears convince him to come back in August? I don't know. Maybe. That's not really worth speculating about right now, but certainly something to think about. And if that happens, I guess I wouldn't be shocked. Seems to be a thing that football players go through. The end of the year, like, man, I don't know if I can do it. And then they get that itch. Come August, come September, right? Couple cuts from Aaron Rodgers. First of all, he mentioned his wife a lot in this. And he seems very intent on people leaving him alone about his wife, which is fair. I also think, and I've gathered this with it from the beginning. I've gathered this from Rodgers. I just think he likes saying wife. I have a wife. My wife. Like that would pop. I asked Cone about that because I know Cone's engaged. He called before the break. Like being able to say my fiance. Like that, give you a little buzz. Like, ooh, those are words that just came out of my mouth. I think Rodgers likes it. I think he digs it. And good for him. He's in love. He wants to talk about his wife. He was asked by Pat McAfee, look, you staying in shape? You might maybe want to come back. And Rodgers talked about staying in shape.
I'm trying to stay fit. I mean, it's harder when you get older. So you kind of can't take the same amount of time off as you used to. You know, after so many seasons, I would take, a few weeks off, a month and a half. Now, now 42, just to stay in shape, you gotta kind of always be dialed in on the diet and sleep and the workouts if you want to look the right way. I want this is we're not on ESPN. I mean, it wouldn't matter, but I want to look good. I want my wife to want to me all the time. Look good all the time.
Okay.
Man, that played to the room very well.
Look good all the time.
Okay.
That's me every time Goose Eggs, anytime Lee on the live stream calls in and dumps on Lone Rock.
Look good all the time.
Okay.
So part of me wants to roll my eyes at this, but I also am with Cone, who mentioned this before the break. He said, you know what? Good for Aaron Rodgers, because a lot of guys get in relationships and they say, all right, well, let myself go. And what is the woman to do? What is the woman to do? You don't want to continue to look good for her. So good for Rodgers. I also think he's less than a year removed from playing professional football. So you're probably not going to get fat, Aaron. But again, I could be cynical about this and get a bunch of jokes off at his expense. I don't think I will. I think this is a good way to approach life, actually.
This is we're not on ESPN. I mean, it wouldn't matter, but I want to look good. I want my wife to want to me all the time. Look good all the time.
Okay.
That's a raucous reply right there.
Look good all the time.
Okay.
Another joke about Lone Rock. Here's a cut about Aaron Rodgers. You'll hear the question in here from AJ Hawk. who's on today on the Pat McAfee show. I don't know. I see the clips because I'm blocked on Twitter. Not because I ever tweeted anything back. I always just used to post fake clips about like Ryan Braun and stuff. And I don't know if their mod got sick of it or whatever. They just got blocked. Whatever. Here's AJ Hawk asking Rodgers about whether or not he has interest returning to Pittsburgh.
Your ties to Pittsburgh and obviously Big Mike, it all seems to make sense to me.
That's a good question.
What makes sense?
You going back to Pittsburgh, playing for Big Mike. I think Campy is there. Mark Lovat is there. There's a lot of great Green Bay people back in
Grant
town.
Thorne?
So Grant Thorne, amazing. There's some amazing characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some great characters. I mean, like, listen, I'd be lying if I didn't say that was something that I enjoyed seeing, like all those guys getting back together. And, it's some of the guys that had the greatest impact on my career. You're talking about James Campen, who used to take me out when I was a rookie on the road because I didn't know where to go, what to do. And
so I'm going to pause it here. So he's about to talk about his memories with James Campen and all the other people who've been added to Mike McCarthy's staff. My take from the day Mike McCarthy was hired, from the day that Mike McCarthy was hired to be the head coach of Pittsburgh, and we played the sound in the show. What did I say? I said, I think Rodgers will at the very least consider long and hard coming to play for McCarthy and the staff because Rodgers is such a reminiscer. He's an S-tier reminiscer and BSer. And I fully believe that Rodgers is going to be attracted to Pittsburgh just because he could go be with James Campen and all those other names that you mentioned, Joe Witt, because he could talk about what things used to be like in 2009. So remember that take of mine. Now listen to the rest of this.
And there wasn't a lot of rookies back then. There's less rookies making the team than there are now. And Campy would take me out to dinner on the road a lot. And he always says that I took him out one time to a Mexican spot that cost, $10 a person. And he used to take me to, $50, $60 a person dinners. But James was an influential person in my life as a young player, especially. I love Coach Campen a ton. Obviously, Mike, I've talked about him a bunch. Mark Lovat, it was Barry Rubin, and who I love. Barry Rubin, one of the all-time greats in the league, strength coach. And Mark Lovat was his assistant back then. And I watched Bloke, go from assistant to
you guys
Dave
listening to
Redding
this,
came
by the
in.
way?
Redman, just what a legend. You remember Redman, AJ? What a great guy. And then Mark took over and had a lot of fun and success with him. He's one of the great human beings in the business that I've been able to be across. And Grant, watch him come in from, a young guy trying to sort it out. We gave him a ton of all the time. But, with him and Thaddeus Jackson.
Jackson. Who, and I had to cut it off. He goes for like 2 more minutes, but I can't play sound bites that long on the show. There's like 6 names he threw in there. Well, Campy took me out to dinner and, Redmond, oh, what an effing legend. And then, of course, Grant, we watched him, come along. And Thaddeus Jackson, remember Thaddeus Jackson? I listening to Aaron Rodgers talk about football, and this is good or bad. This is just observational. This is not a criticism. Listening to Rodgers talk about football reminds me of a core childhood experience I had. I'll never forget this. When I was young, and this is the difference between a child and an adult. This is a difference in what children like versus what adults like, what we do, what we don't do. I grew up on a lake. We would ride the pontoon around. My grandma still lives on the same lake as my parents. They've been on this lake for 30, 40 years. My grandma and grandpa had a cabin. That's how it started. And then my dad moved here and then they built a house. They've been here forever. They know everybody or have known everybody. We would ride the boat around. It's not that big of a lake. You go end to end, an hour and a half long boat ride, just cruising around. And I remember being a kid just beside myself at my parents and my grandma or whoever else was on the boat. All they would do is just point at houses and be like, does Brad still live there? Oh, no, he sold it to Jeff. Oh, is his wife Mary? But remember, originally her maiden name was Terry. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, and her brother. I graduated with his brother. That's right. Yeah, with Terry, with Mary's brother. He played he was tall. He played basketball. He was good. You know who else was on that team? Was Mark. Mark lives on the other end of the lake. Did they remodel the house? Yeah, I think. I think what they did was they didn't remodel completely, but they built the attached garage. And when they did that, they also they updated the shingles on the house to match. That's right. I remember that wasn't too popular in the neighborhood. 4 houses down. I remember Marion, she, flipped a tit because, in order to build the house, they had to tear down this line of trees. And that, those trees had been there since Marion's mom lived in the house. Of course, she had a different last name. And, She used to be a server at the supper club in town back before it was the marketplace. That's where the bolo used to be. It was hours of this. And now, and I'm an old soul, so it's not like I'm old. I'm 28, but now I'm like, that's my favorite activity in the world. I could do that on the boat for 4. I was doing it here for fun by myself. Like, I love doing that. But as a kid, it's like, what are you talking about? That's how I feel when I listen to Rodgers. Like, what are you talking about? You're just throwing names out. I don't know who any of these people are. I suppose the point is AJ Hawk does, and he was the one who asked the question. This is why I think Rodgers will come back. And McCarthy and Rodgers could hate each other. I asked people about this at the Combine who know Packers history. It's like, look, did that thing just come apart at the seams and McCarthy was the one to go? Or they actually there are people who believe like, no, they do not. That never happened. They don't like each other. So maybe. But I think Rodgers will definitely think about it just because of what I just played for you. Like he just loves throwing names out there. 608-321-1670. Let's take a call here. Got about 3 minutes. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Well, if it ain't my old friend Grant Bill.
Eric on I-90. I bet you've had some of those conversations driving around the district, just looking at houses.
Oh, my God, definitely. How many years have you been doing this now, Grant? When did you start?
2018. So this will be 8 years in August.
16 seasons then if we go by Survivor time.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
I can remember the days when I'd give you a call back here about 16 seasons ago, and I'd be cruising down I-90 here into about the same sunset that I'm looking at right now. There were some good times, weren't they, Grant? You'd let me talk for 9-10 minutes.
Yeah. I miss it.
Yeah, it's the good old days.
I'm going to cry.
I'm tearing up myself just a bit right here, right now.
Reminiscing. No wonder Rodgers loves doing this.
Right. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. So, and let's reminisce about like Vikings quarterbacks like J.J. McCarthy. I think we're going to be reminiscing about him pretty soon.
Seems to be headed that way. I keep hearing Kyler Murray. You want Kyler Murray for $1 million next year?
No, I don't want Kyler Murray for $1 million. I've heard 3 or 4 players, and I'm not really big on any of them. And then I was really up on Malik Willis, but then I listened to you at the Combine and found out he doesn't have enough playing time. Doesn't have a big enough
sample size.
Sample size. That's what somebody said when they went and looked at the old 22. Not enough sample size, really. Guess on what's going on there. So that's all I got. And then we got Survivor, Grant. I'm guessing you're watching it.
I am. Don't spoil. I'm caught up on last week. Obviously, I haven't watched tonight's yet because it hasn't happened yet.
Right. So you watched 3 hours of it. I thought they pushed that a little hard. I don't think we need 3 hours.
I don't need 3 hours of anything, even in the finale. I'm with you. And look, it's a lot of commercials, so you fast forward. Eric, I got to run because I got to take a break. You have an excellent night, okay?
Nice talking to you, bud.
Yep, you as well, Eric. Maybe we can talk Survivor at the end of this week. Goose Eggs on live stream says, Eric on I-90, talk about the riots in La Crosse after the Coon Valley canoe races, and then how the canoe races got banned. I bet Eric was there. Not participating. He was just observing, I bet. Like Jerry Jones when his school was integrated. Let's take a break. We can reminisce a little bit more on the other side. I want to talk some Bucks. Jesse Temple will be here in hour number 2 as well. A lot to come.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. We got about 2 minutes. Can I give you an excerpt from Brad Williams yesterday in La Crosse? WIZM News, our sister station in La Crosse, on the canoe races. I do like going back to this story every once in a while. This was mentioned before our last break. In 91, La Crosse got unwanted national publicity. This isn't funny. When a mob on the street overturned a city police car and set it on fire. It happened during the weekend of the Coon Creek canoe races in Coon Valley. For 3 years, people attending the races then went to La Crosse to drink on 3rd Street. I wonder how they got there, by the way. Do you think they're riding a shuttle? For 3 years, people kept attending the races and then went to La Crosse to drink on 3rd Street, then confront the cops trying to keep the peace. In August of 91, organizers of the Coon Creek event said they would try shortening the 2-day festival to just 1 day in 92 to reduce the chance of rioting. It didn't work. Crowds still stopped downtown traffic in 92 and challenged police who responded with tear gas. This isn't funny. A corporate spelling bee was started in 91 to mark International Literacy Day. This is the rest of the story from Brad. He's got on this day in 1991. This is from February. So the spelling bee is separate of the... I love how this story doesn't conclude. Brad leaves it as, it didn't work. Crowds still stopped downtown traffic in 92 and challenged police who responded with tear gas. That was it. That was the end of the story. Someone said that to me over the break. Yesterday in La Crosse, Brad Williams, who is a legend. The Coon Creek canoe races. There we go. That's the first hour. We talked about vinyl flooring yesterday, so don't yell at me about talking about Coon Creek and its canoe riots. The protesters would then go to drink on 3rd Street, which is not just around the corner, by the way. It's not an hour in the car, but you gotta go up over 10 Mile Hill, come down through 14, all the way through South La Crosse. And you say, oh, well, we'll just go from Coon Valley to 3rd Street to drink. That's not a golf ball throw. I wonder how they got there. Oh, thank you, Brad Williams. I needed a laugh. It's not funny, but it is. We'll get an update from Zach. Reset the show next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update. Wisconsin will close out the home portion of their schedule tonight. They visit Maryland. Badgers have secured a double bye in the Big Ten tournament next week and likely to be number 6 seed and playing on Thursday night. Tonight, though, the line of 4 seniors. That includes Nick Boyd, who has a chance to become the first Wisconsin player to average better than 20 points per game since Michael Finley did it 31 years ago. His roommate and fellow senior, Braden Carrington, had high praise for his teammate.
He's doing the best place I've ever been. I mean, NBA right now, but I mean, also but he's the exact same person you see out the court. I mean, he's a great leader. You know, he's had the experience of obviously one of the Final Four and being on good teams, and that is for having him in the college. You know, he's a great guy. Yeah.
Going to be the Badgers and Terrapins tonight. Wisconsin isn't making this like tournament, with most predicting having them between a 6 and 8 seed. Maryland, meanwhile, under first-year coach Buzz Williams, going to miss the tournament unless they win the Big Ten tournament next week. Tonight is at 7. Turner Bucks. They're going to look to snap a 3-game losing streak when they face off against Atlanta tonight. They're also at 7.
At a time when children are in crisis, the Kids Mental Health Foundation envisions a future where mental health is a vital part of growing up, and support starts with all of us, at home, at school, at practice, everywhere kids are. The Kids Mental Health Foundation is the leading organization promoting mental health for children in the U.S. and has free tools and information developed by experts.
Having those resources is the same as the CPR class. We're trying to save a life here.
Check out kidsmentalhealthfoundation.org to get started.
Well, the Packers are bringing running back Chris Brooks back on a 2-year deal. Brooks was slated to be a restricted free agent. He had nearly 200 yards in scrimmage last year for Green Bay. Also played special teams. It's reportedly a deal with $4.85 million. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
I found out that day that this was a possibility, and I say it that way though because it wasn't a certainty at that point.
Was he like weighing retirement?
He wasn't weighing retirement. The Bears were trying to convince him not to.
Okay.
They didn't want him to retire, and there was some I think there was so basically I wanted to see if maybe the Bears would succeed in that because he's on a good contract. He's only 27. The outlook for the team looks great. I mean, there's a million ways that you can go about trying to convince somebody, but I think that you couldn't really argue with all of the things that mattered to Drew and the reason that he made this decision, which was not lightly by any stretch of the imagination.
But remember when Ben Johnson signed him and talked about him the first time, he said, this guy's going to be the quarterback of our offensive line. And the investment was paid off.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
All right, hour number 2. The last 2 shows I think have been excellent. Good NFL conversation, good Bucks conversation. I want to mix in a Bucks segment here coming up because Lori Nickel took it to the Bucks with both barrels. Very good. 2 great guests. Kurt Hogue was outstanding last night, if you missed it. Jesse Temple will be outstanding. He'll be here in a half hour. So stick around for that. We've also mixed in, we were talking about the canoe races. And last night we had to do a segment on vinyl plank flooring. So we've, mixed in a little grab ass as well. Mississippi Drew, on the topic of reminiscing, says, we called that porch talk growing up. Mississippi Drew, every call I hear you make to Over the Line in the morning is porch talk. And may I just criticize you just for a second? This shouldn't make me angry, but it does. Every morning you call in at 9:57. And there's never more than 60 seconds for you to talk. Do you own a clock? It's a 4-hour show. And every morning you're going about your life. I better call Ebo. What time is it? Oh, his show's done in 90 seconds. This is a good time for me to call. Like, Mississippi Drew, lock in a little bit. Just a bit. Jim in Cottage Grove. Is it hearsay or did is it hearsay or AI or did Lou Holtz really die? It seems that Lou Holtz has passed. Yes. And I've had enough hearing it from Kinger on the live stream saying, God, good Catholic Grant is. He hasn't even mentioned Lou Holtz's death. Yes, Lou Holtz has passed away. Rest in peace. No disrespect. Sorry I didn't present the news. Jim in Cottage Grove also said, this is funny. You're starting to go off like Bill did this morning. Next year, you're going to say, or next you're going to say, drop your pants. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, Bill did have a couple good rants today.
Pants off, dance off. Oh.
Yeah, Bill was on something today.
Oh.
Soul Surfer said, I got a buddy who's on the front page in that picture of the event, the Coon Creek riots. That was funny. What were they rioting over? Typically, riots are, you're rioting. There was a shooting between police and a civilian, and we're unhappy, so we're going to riot. We've seen a good amount of that, the last couple of years. I'm not saying I feel any certain way about it, but that's like, I understand why a riot would take place there. I don't understand I don't understand the Coon Creek canoe race riots. What were they rioting over? That's what I don't get. And maybe there's nothing to get. I don't know.
Oh,
Jesus.
oh, pants off, dance off. Oh,
Jay Krebs says, be nice to Mississippi. Okay, I'll be nice to Mississippi, Drew. But dude, buy a watch. Stop calling in with 60 seconds left in the show. The big story of today, well, there's a bunch of big NFL stories. Drew Dahlman retiring in the same offseason now that saw Bears, their left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo, got hurt in the first round of the playoffs. So they got to essentially replace 40% of their O-line this offseason. And we connected that with the work the Packers have to do on their O-line and the work the Lions have to do on their O-line. So I think a big part of the NFC North offseason story is going to be about which one of these three teams figures out the O-line. And then, of course, I guess whatever the Vikings do at quarterback. Watch Kyler Murray come in and be awesome. I kind of like Kyler Murray. I kind of like Kyler Murray. He's kind of nice with it. So there's that story. Tyler Linderbaum, the Iowa product, who's been the center at Baltimore for 4 or 5 years now, set to be a free agent. Who knows if he'll reach free agency? We learned today that center Connor McGovern feels Bill's tenure is over and done with Brandon Beane silent. This is from the Athletics' Tim Graham. 1 week before free agency begins, the Buffalo Bills' best available player believes he has played his last game for the team. Offensive lineman Connor McGovern told The Athletic he and his agent haven't heard from Bills football boss Brandon Beane since the postseason exit interviews in Orchard Park, New York. They haven't contacted me once, McGovern said by his phone from his offseason home in Florida. In my gut, that says it's over and done. Buffalo faces difficult decisions to become salary cap compliant, and McGovern is a precious commodity. Seemingly, half the league needs a center, multiple teams in the NFC North, and McGovern is considered the second best free agent in the position after Baltimore Ravens anchor Tyler Linderbaum. Their value increased a little more Tuesday when 27-year-old Chicago Bears center Drew Dahlman abruptly retired. Tyler Biadasz is also set to be available. The Washington football team, the Commanders, let him go. Bills left guard David Edwards is also a pending free agent. Well, there you go, Packers. At practical best, McGovern figured the Bills can only afford to bring one of them back. Sports contract database Spotrac estimates McGovern's average annual market value at $16.3 million and Edwards at $19.9 million. I do wonder if the Packers have any appetite to spend in free agency. So we'll monitor the center market, the available centers, and what the Packers are doing on their O-line moving forward. I guess you could make the case that Sean Ryan is a center. I don't really want the Packers to patchwork center moving forward. If they feel as though they can patchwork guard on one of the sides, that's fine. They need to find a center. I think a big part of the reason. So their O-line had lots of issues last year. One of the issues that we saw, and it cropped up conveniently in crunch time and in big moments, was they would flop protections. Well, who's calling out protections? The center. Who is, to Matt Spiegel's words again, and he was, I guess, quoting Ben Johnson in the intro, who's the quarterback of the O-line? It's your center.
But remember when Ben Johnson signed him and talked about him the first time, he said, this guy's going to be the quarterback of our offensive line. And the investment was paid off.
There you go. I would like the Packers to not patchwork center. I would like for them to find one, whether it's in free agency or draft the guy you think is best suited for the gig and hope that he earns it. Make Stenovich and all those guys, Luke Butkus, make them earn their keep. Another story today is we learned that Stephon Diggs is going to be released by the Patriots at the start of the league year next year. I think they owe him something like $20 million guaranteed after a certain date. And I'm going to try to find some ramifications here. Here it is. Mike Reese covers the Pats. A source says the Patriots have informed him he will be released at the start of the league year, ties to finances as the cap charge was spiking from $10 million to $26 million. So yeah, $26 million all in all. I think they're going to have to pay him like something like $6 million anyways, but saving $20 million. So Stephon Diggs is now available. Alec Pierce was speaking today. This is sneaky going to be a pretty interesting free agency class. Trey Hendrickson is set to be available. It's going to be pretty interesting. Your call's welcome. We got wide open phone lines, so I won't make you wait. 608-321-1670. Goose Eggs, who's Drew's biggest op in the audience, says Drew might not own a clock. He wanted to work for some Amish framers up the street. Well, yeah, him and his Toyota. It's not the Denali fully loaded, all options available. So it sounds mighty Amish, if you say so to me. I think the Packers, back to our original point, I think the Packers, the Bears, the Lions, the team that figures out their O-line this offseason will be the team that probably comes out on top next year. Now you could say, well, Caleb Williams versus Jordan Love versus Jared Goff. Sure, the quarterbacks matter too, but I think all of these three teams have a similar amount of strengths and weaknesses. They're different, but on balance, I think these three teams are coming out similarly. The difference in one or two extra wins could be the difference between a wild card and winning the division, could be the difference between 11 wins and 9 wins, is figuring out the O-line. So that's where this offseason starts for me. Another Packers story today. Everyone was sharing this as if it's revelatory, so it must be. Here's a special teams coordinator in Cleveland, Byron Storer. Man, that's a special teams coordinator name. Asked about Rich Bisaccia and if he had talked to him, a former coworker of his.
He did mention it to me, and it was kind of, it was kind of after I had already got the job in Cleveland, and he kind of said, I'm thinking about retiring. And he's like, what do you think? And I just said, you know what, Coach, going through the process here in Cleveland and, and getting to know Todd Monken and Andrew Berry and, Cleveland's where I want to be. And so, he did let me know about that, but I didn't know for sure if he was going to do it or not. It was kind of like in passing, like, this is what I'm thinking. But, he went back to work. So I thought, he's going to go back and run it back another year. So, but I wish Rich all the best. We stay in touch. We talk all the time. And so I always have him as a guy that I can call at any point in time and ask questions.
So this is what Mike quote tweeted today. He added me and Bill. It says, Byron Storer says, even though Rich Bisaccia tipped him off that he was leaning towards leaving as the Packers special teams coordinator, he decided to accept the coordinator offer from the Browns. So Mike is saying, well, this guy found the Browns special teams coordinator offer to be more interesting than the Packers. Maybe true, maybe not. It's an interesting angle from Mike. I think that sound is interesting. I don't know that a special teams coordinator has ever made headlines. Put it this way. The Packers hired a new guy. I haven't mentioned it once this week. Hasn't come up on Bill's show. We're still talking about the fallout from the old guy leaving. Interesting. And maybe a little insane. And maybe symptomatic of sports talk radio in the way that it works. Okay, whatever. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hector driving through on Alaska.
Hector and on Alaska. I thought of you when I was on the phone with Eric on I-90 because we've had lots of callers come and go throughout the years. Eric was talking about his origins of becoming a caller. And I said, Hector and on Alaska called a lot more back in the day.
I did. It was more about the opportunity just because I worked for FedEx at the time and 4 to 5 was my drive home. So I would from good old Gays Mills.
Yeah.
Leave that area about 3:45 or so. I'm not getting back to Onalaska till a good way through your show. So it was always nice to be able to. Now I still listen. I throw it on. I work down at the Quick Trip Kitchens, and so I got it on in my ear all day. I listen to you and Bill, and I just don't have the opportunity to call in as much. I got my 3 daughters, so I don't interact with.
You're a family man, Hector. That's fine with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't have much good to contribute to your show, Grant. I was just you were talking about offensive lines, and it got me to thinking about how the Ravens just decided to let our center walk. So I mean,
is he for sure
leaving?
Because the Ravens are your team. So tell me, because we do this every year, where it's like this guy's set to be a free agent, but they never actually make it to free agency. Are the Ravens going to let him go?
I have heard zero about them even making a solid push towards giving him the kind of money that he is asking. Nay, deserves. He's one of the top. He's a top 5 center in the National Football League, and a good center is hard to come by, let alone someone that's putting, all pro seasons back to back from his rookie start. Like, that's just crazy to me. So another dumb decision maybe on the horizon. I also heard a rumor of them wanting to give Lamar upwards of $77 million a year or something like that. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's all about money now, Grant, and unfortunately with that goes the love of the sport. And I think I might just spend more time focusing on players this upcoming season because, as a sports fan, I don't know what the Ravens are doing. And as a home sports fan, the Packers are going to be more interesting to watch. So maybe I'll put the green on a little more often this coming year.
You don't believe in Jesse Minter? He was the coach of the combine or at the Super Bowl when I asked, which coach do you like most in this hiring cycle? Everyone said Jesse Minter.
Yes, he was in my top 3. I, of course, was very much liking the sound of Mr. Kubiak, but he needed a more, desperate franchise to resurrect, and we just aren't in shambles yet. So we'll let Lamar suck us dry for a little bit and then wonder what the hell happened.
Let Lamar, appreciate it, Hector. Yeah, you'll let Lamar Jack. This is interesting, man. I'm interested to see how Burrow, Allen, Lamar, how those 3 guys, their careers continue. I think we're already seeing it with Herbert. I don't know how Chargers fans feel about Herbert. I don't know any Chargers fans. But the longer Lamar goes, making more money, continue. Like, imagine if Aaron Rodgers had never won that Super Bowl in 2010, how maybe we would have viewed some of those losses or some of those stories differently. And it got to the point where the Packers franchise, the fan base got frustrated with him anyways, right? We got frustrated with him anyways at the end. And maybe that's bound to happen with any quarterback who's at a place for almost 20 years. What happens with Lamar and the Ravens moving forward, especially now with the new coach? Interests me. What happens with Josh Allen and the Bills? Is that continue? One of these teams, here's what I'll say. Burrow, Lamar, Allen. One of those quarterbacks, at least one of those quarterbacks is a Ram at some point. You know what I mean? I don't know which one. One of them is ending up playing for Sean McVay in 2 years, And I don't think it'll be Josh Allen. Joe Burrow maybe seems the most likely. But Lamar, there's always been a contract thing. He couldn't make it work with Harbaugh. They weren't seeing eye to eye. I'll plant my take flag on this now. Within the next 3 years, one of Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson is going to end up playing for Sean McVay. And I think it's Joe Burrow. The show tonight presented by La Crosse Beer House, corner of 3rd and Pearl in downtown La Crosse. An awesome sponsor for the show. Anytime we want to go somewhere, broadcast live, go on location at the Super Bowl or at the Combine, or anytime we need a guest like Ryan Wood, his appearance is all Packers season long, presented by La Crosse Beer House. Go down there for a brat or a mug of authentic German beer or a big pretzel. The pretzels are awesome. I always feel like I need to recline a little bit, but I push through and I keep drinking beer. So go down there again, right in the heart of downtown La Crosse, the thick of it all, the corner of 3rd and Pearl. La Crosse Beer House, proud sponsor of the show. And when I say proud, I am proud to represent them. We're going to take a couple minutes. We'll come back on the other side. Lori Nickel took it to the Bucks with both barrels. I want to read you some of this. It's good stuff. We'll also get to Jesse Temple at 5:35.
This is the Wisco Sports Show. Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Celtics are a try-hard team this year, right? No Tatum. Jaylen Brown has been fantastic. But, they traded everybody away, right? And the credit to Joe Mazzulla and those guys. But, and credit to Sam Hauser, Wisconsin's own, right? And these guys. But Hugo Gonzalez should not be jumping over Giannis Antetokounmpo for a tip dunk.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so... And Gonzalez also went around Miles Turner and that's the thing, but that's who the Celtics are. The Bucks have played them twice already. It's like the scouting report is what it is against the Celtics, and the Bucks just either didn't pay attention to it, didn't care about it, didn't realize maybe just how fast all those guys were going to be. Whatever the reason, it's inexcusable.
Wisco Sports Show continuing on. That's Jim Ozarski. I played that clip yesterday. It's from Bill's show, beginning of hour 4 yesterday. Go back and listen if you missed it. And that's Jim just kind of sticking it to the team a little bit fairly, saying, you guys know what the Celtics are. You know what they're about. The Bucks are far from perfect, but Hugo Gonzalez shouldn't be jumping over Giannis or Miles Turner to get a rebound. Come on. And my take yesterday to begin the show was the Bucks had won 8 out of 10. They're coming into a weekend with 2 of 3 games at home, and Giannis is coming back. You're sniffing the playoff line. This should be it. This should be the weekend. And they lost 3 games by 26, 29, and I believe 23. Come on. Lori Nickel at the Journal Sentinel today. Lori's been on a Bucks heater this year. I just got to read you a little bit of this. Let's end this. No more talk about the NBA playing in the playoffs. It's rage bait. It feeds a delusion. It's manufactured. And an unhealthy cycle of hype followed by a crashing thud. Believe what you've seen, the awful blowouts, the bad defense, the 7 games that were over for the Milwaukee Bucks by halftime. Remember it and accept it. The Bucks don't have the depth and talent or the consistency and execution, nor the leadership organizationally to be a top 8 team with a winning record in the Eastern Conference this year. But that doesn't mean there's no purpose anymore. The Bucks need to play and play hard for their young teammates, their culture, their recruits, and many other things. That should be their new challenge. But those 8 out of 10 games in February, so what? That's the month when NBA teams lose a little focus because the season is too damn long, and Milwaukee just took advantage of it or got a little lucky. Milwaukee has now lost 3 straight. Kind of fool's gold for real, Bobby Portis said. Rolling 8 of 10, playing against bottom teams that's trying to lose, right? Thank goodness we still have Bobby Portis. Fans know the real ones who chose to show up to Fiserv Forum were so respectful in Giannis's big return to the court March 2nd after a 6-week absence with an injury. Even when it became obvious the Bucks were going to lose to the Celtics by the end of the first quarter, they didn't boo the home team. Instead, we have a new Milwaukee custom. Fans streaming out of the seats midway through the fourth quarter to beat the construction-induced traffic jam on 94. That's facts. Nah, there's too much wrong with the Bucks, and that makes the purpose ahead all the more clear in this race to April 13th, the merciful end of the season. So she talks about the Bucks and what's wrong with their play style and blah, 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 and we can talk about that in the roster. And I'm not going to read you this whole thing, but the part that I do want to read you is about Doc. Stop calling for Doc Rivers firing. There's been enough losing in epic fashion to warrant Doc Rivers firing. Instead of asking for it, ask why it hasn't happened. It's clear Bucks ownership is content with keeping Rivers on, maybe just to make sure the place doesn't burn down before the season ends. I say that respectfully if you'll believe it. This is an unfortunate way for Rivers to end his beautiful career and possibly lead up to a Hall of Fame induction in April. He's not even been introduced at some of the home games this year, and he's a Marquette guy. I wonder if he regrets accepting this job. John Horst messed this up by firing Budenholzer, then firing by necessity Budenholzer's replacement, Adrian Griffin, and then hiring Rivers off the golf courses and out of his comfy television analyst chair. Rivers is still coaching in games, trying to call effective timeouts, trying to develop strategies. It doesn't look like the whole team has quit on him. A few games ago, Miles Turner came off the court for a normal substitution, and when missed whatever Rivers was trying to tell him, he jumped back in to listen to Rivers' instruction. He could have ignored the coach. It's good to see the professionalism. That's a low bar, but it is a bar. And a good observation by Laurie. The Bucks benched a healthy and able Kyle Kuzma for the Celtics game when the Bucks can't afford to give a locker room attendant the night off. And when stuff like that happens, instincts say things are really going sour in a hurry. So where's Bucks leadership? It looks like general manager John Horst is choosing to do his job without facing media questions or taking any accountability. But there are other red flags. The abrupt switch at president with Peter Fagan suddenly swapped out for Josh Glessing. That's the business side of the team, but Fagan was such an important part of the Bucks, and he got Milwaukee. And the Bucks owners, where have they been? They used to be visible in their courtside seats, even if they are not Milwaukeeans. At least they came to Milwaukee for games. It's unsettling to see their seats otherwise occupied. They're not in the hallways outside the locker room after games. A lot of us who live in Bruce City and frankly use basketball as a pleasant diversion to endure these freaking endless winters do not want to see the Bucks diminish to a branch location for a distant businessman. We can't afford to be a remote outpost. Senator Cole, hear our prayer. Then she goes on to talk about Giannis. I love that Laurie's just taking both barrels to the Bucks, and I think it's a good way of framing it. Instead of wanting Doc Rivers fired, ask why he's still here, because that's a much more interesting question to me. And Laurie's saying, the owners, the GM, this GM going to talk? Is he going to be held accountable? Let's take a call here, and then Jesse Temple's going to join us after the bottom of the hour. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Wow, that was quite the article.
Laurie
that
Nicolai.
was direct quotes.
That was a banger. I'm glad someone wrote it.
I like a fiery article. I also, I'm not drinking tonight, but pouring one out metaphorically for that human, right? Grant, you have a tough job. You have to listen. Callers might bring up flooring. They might bring up Paul Chris again, right? Like, it's a tough gig. I couldn't imagine having a livelihood that is tied to a local NBA team and having to like draw up attention for a team that's as dead as the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's a person's entire job. And I could feel the emotion coming through the article and the written piece. That's what makes her such a talented writer. Because you could just feel like, hey guys, we're supposed to care about this.
Yep.
Ownership doesn't seem to even remotely recognize that. And I think as a, not closet fan, what's the opposite of that? Distant NBA observer, we'll call myself,
Casual,
right?
Sure.
Yeah, I could definitely feel that coming through. So that was a good insight. Hey, I was on a little bit of a delay. I loved Hector's call a couple months ago when the Ravens fired Harbaugh. I made the comment, I don't really understand how you can move on from the head coach and prioritize a quarterback who plays in the style that Lamar Jackson plays in. And now hearing that they're going to pay them $70 million plus. Again, Packer fans, a little bit of, I love this show because you have a couple of callers that represent other fan bases.
Yeah, it's a good palate cleanser. And it weirdly, like tonight, it weirdly is helpful sometimes where it's like, oh, this weird story. Here's Hector. He's a Ravens fan for some reason. And it weirdly is helpful. You'd think that it would be random and annoying, but it's actually not.
Hector made me feel so much better about the next 5 years of the Green Bay Packers. When I look at the absolute dumpster fire and when I look at the Ravens absolutely jumping off a cliff, nosediving to try to be just like the Cleveland Browns, I think if they sign Lamar Jackson to a $70 million contract, I think it's going to be as impactful to the Browns and Deshaun Watson, just without the messy trade and all the, off the field stuff. Like, I think that's going to absolutely sink that franchise for a decade. So, Hector, I'm also going to pour one out for you, buddy. But you made me feel a hell of a lot better because the Green Bay Packers are not making any mistake like that. And, I'll feel a lot better about Jordan Love at $52 million if I see Lamar Jackson at 70. So That's all I got. A little optimistic today. Thank you, Hector, for making me feel that way.
No, I mean, that was a bleak outlook on the Ravens. I believe in them organizationally. I believe in Jesse Minter, and I believe in the Ravens scouts and front office. It's tough. It would be one thing to fire the coach and to go all in on the quarterback with that play style if he'd won. You know, a mobile quarterback who has some quirks, made it difficult to coexist with the coach at the end. It's fine firing the coach and going in on that guy when that guy's won in the playoffs, but Lamar Jackson's consistently played his worst game every year in the biggest game of the year. So that's where I believe if I was Hector, I would share in his frustration. Jesse Temple going to join us next to talk Badgers. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Jesse. Hey, Jesse. 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 Jesse.
Jesse! Jesse Temple! Badger Connect joins us every Wednesday. We have a good smattering of different topics to cover today. A couple football things, including a new assistant coach, and obviously plenty of basketball. We're now on the home stretch of the schedule. Senior night is tonight, so we discussed that. I recorded with Jesse just earlier this afternoon. Here's our conversation. Enjoy. Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect. Follow his work there. And then, of course, the podcast, The Camp and The Swing. Him and Zach have just been cranking out content. I sent some things to Zach last week. I was at the Combine, and I watched Mason Reiger's testing. He jumped out of the building. I thought he was impressive at the podium as well. He talked about coming to Wisconsin, his 1 year at Wisconsin and in the Big Ten, preparing him for his career as a pro, hopefully. Of course, you're going to say that, but I thought that was interesting. In this modern version of college football, where Wisconsin might look for a sixth-year guy like that to come in for 1 year. If Mason Reiger could go into the pros and establish himself, what kind of a feather in the cap of Luke Fickell in the program? How could that help them, in your opinion?
It's certainly tremendous free advertising for the program. And in previous years, we saw Badgers players rise to stardom in the NFL. And for however many years out, if you had high school players coming up, they saw those players and they wanted to be those players. Now, it's a little different era, as you mentioned, Grant, in the transfer portal age. I think the best way I can equate this here is to the basketball program. It is March, so I feel like I'm going to segue everything somehow into basketball. Yeah. But look at what they've done in the transfer portal. You get AJ Storr from St. John's, and he has a really good year. And so you say, John Tonje, we think you can be that guy. John Tonje then becomes an All-American and an NBA draft pick, and you say, hey, Nick Boyd, why don't you come in your own style, but be our guy at Wisconsin? And next year, they're going to be able to sell the same thing. So if you have a guy like Mason Reiger, who, when he arrives at Wisconsin, is battling a history of injuries, you don't know what you're going to get, but in that 1 year, he explodes onto the radar and shows what he can do, and then continues to excel at the Combine, and we'll see what happens leading up to the draft in late April. But it can only be good for this program.
He also, at his podium, he was asked a bunch because there was a big Wisconsin media contingent there. He said, what did your year in Wisconsin mean to you? We're trying to get Wisconsin comments and content. And he did point out, not unfairly so, that was his one losing year of college football, and that there were, struggles there. And he talked about the adversity of that, and also the adversity of, not adversity that's inherently bad, but just adversity of coming to a new place, learning a new system, learning new teammates. I think that has to speak volumes about a player. As an NFL GM, I wouldn't necessarily target guys who have played in multiple places, but I would be interested, and it could be a potential green flag for a player who stepped up to a bigger program, acclimated well, fit in with coaches and players, and succeeded right away. I think that speaks highly of Reiger, right?
His story is fascinating because before this season, if you were an NFL scout and you're in the personnel department, everything other than his work ethic and personality would have been red flags because of the injury history. That's specifically what I'm referring to. Multiple surgeries, hadn't played a full season in quite a while. Then he gets to Wisconsin. and has to undergo another surgery. I actually talked to him before this season about some of the struggles that he had endured. And at that time, he felt like he was on the mend and was ready for preseason camp. But you hear a lot of people be optimistic. It's one thing to be optimistic and have the right mindset. And it's another thing to go out and actually do it in that one last chance that you have. And so, yeah, I think based on what he did at the combine, a 40-inch vertical and everything else, he got himself drafted if it wasn't evident enough during the season. And obviously the other combine invite for Wisconsin was Vinny Anthony. I don't necessarily know that the testing numbers were indicative of his athleticism, but those testing numbers matter because you're comparing, as an NFL personnel evaluator, that player to all the other players doing the same testing. And so I'd be interested to see whether Vinny will redo some of those tests this Friday at Pro Day, which is coming up, obviously, for a lot of the players who did not have a chance to go to the combine.
I also think just with the testing, and we went to Lucas Oil, I watched Mason Reiger test, and we just kind of watched for, an hour or two, and I had to go back to the media center and do my evening drive show. I think it's interesting. These athletes and these agents and these trainers have gotten really smart at preparing for the combine. I don't know the expression, or I don't know the logic to the word, and I don't know who said this or I heard this, but I've heard it said that when something becomes a target, it's no longer an accurate measurement, right? When someone is targeting and training specifically to do a drill that's designed to showcase athleticism on a grander scale, then maybe it's not a good measurement anymore. A lot of these guys just do the couple drills they're good at. They opt out of the ones they're not good at, or they just wait for the pro day. So what are you expecting to see at Wisconsin's pro day? I know you wrote about Nizer Forkurian. It's clearly a big day for him, but what are some of the Badger stories, even for the players like Vinny Anthony and Mason Reiger, who tested at the combine as well?
I will say to that point, I think I slightly disagree a bit. I understand the notion of if it's just a target and that's the only thing you're pursuing and it's not reflective of what it will look like on the field. Well, those drills still exist for a reason. And I think let's just take the 40, for example. Well, you may not run 40 yards very often on the football field. If you're a wide receiver, certainly you hope to get free a lot. There are other positions that won't. But what it does show you is your work ethic and your dedication during that 2-month window when all you were doing was training for a certain thing, knowing that everybody else was only training for that certain thing. So I think that's an element to it. In general, though, these testing numbers, it's always so strange because, like you mentioned, Nizer Forkurian, I wrote a story about him on Friday, and his situation certainly is different because he did not have an opportunity to play in any games last season because of all the court proceedings. It was, but whether you agree or disagree with the ultimate result, the fact that he never got a ruling ultimately and was just sort of waiting on pins and needles the whole season is disappointing, to say the least. But now he's in a spot where he's got to go out and show these NFL personnel that he's got the speed and the agility, and he hasn't lost a step because he hasn't played in games. But there's no doubt how much that hurt him, not having that film of your final year in college. And so NFL people really want to see what he has to offer. I don't know whether he can work himself into a late round pick or be a priority free agent, but for a lot of these guys who weren't combine invites, that's kind of the spot they're in, is can they do enough to catch the attention of someone to maybe be a 7th rounder? Can they just go off the charts and explode into day 2? I mean, that has happened before. Zach and I have talked about Desmond Southward, and this is over a decade ago, but a DB for Wisconsin who had an unbelievable pro day and got himself drafted. I think he was the first Badger taken ahead of even Chris Borland. So there's a lot riding on it. And Nizer said, being honest, it's the most valuable day of my life. And I think if you're a football player and you have aspirations of the NFL and this is your one shot, there's a lot riding on that pro day.
Jesse Temple is here from Badger Connect. One more football thing, and then I want to talk basketball and some of the other things that you're writing about at Badger Connect. But they hired a new wide receivers coach. Is it Ari or Ari Confessor? I'm sorry, I'm not caught up on this. Do we know?
I'd like to tell you I've studied the names. So I'm just going to let you say it, and then I'll learn who these guys are because they announced like 6 changes when spring ball starts in a couple weeks.
So his resume, he's coached wide receivers at Wake Forest, Air Force, Holy Cross, Rhode Island. It's a very interesting resume. What do you know about him, if anything? But also, and I've tried to ask you this with all of their other hirings or their coaches that they brought in, what does this hiring tell us, maybe big picture, about what they're trying to do with the position or in the offense as a whole?
I don't get too worked up over assistant coaching hires or assistant to the assistant, as Dwight Schrute or Michael Scott might be aware of. It's just a revolving door, and that's not to say that there isn't value in the position coach. There obviously is, because they're working with that specific position every day. Look, if the wide receiver room or the offense is any worse than it was a year ago, then no one's going to be here, and it's going to be an entirely different staff. So I suppose the hope is that you can generate some productivity out of that position. It would help to have healthy quarterbacks. But look, this is the fourth wide receiver coach Wisconsin has had. Obviously, one of them was because Kenny Guyton transitioned into quarterbacks coach. Yep. But I don't know. I guess I don't spend a whole bunch of time thinking about the value an assistant coach can bring when we might talk to him twice. And I'm going to need to see something develop on the field for me to feel like it's making a marked difference over the previous guy. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel.
I love that answer, and I far prefer it to 2 minutes of just gibberish that you're just spewing out to fill 2 minutes on a wide receivers coach. That's fine. Let's talk basketball. So they beat Michigan State on February 13th. And I remember the Monday after that, I was on the air and we're looking at the rest of the schedule. And we're like, okay, at Ohio State, home Iowa, at Oregon, at Washington, home Maryland, at Purdue. My goal was like, man, it might be tough. At Ohio State's tough. The West Coast trip, even though neither of those teams are great. If you can get to Purdue without losing any of these next 5 games, like you could really have a strong final stretch. They're 2-2 since that Michigan State win. Is that a disappointment in your eyes?
Well, they lost at Oregon to a team that was 3-13 in the league. That's pretty disappointing, especially when you consider, what happened in the second half. Oregon scored 50+ points, and I know Washington did too, but at least Wisconsin was able to match it. That particular result, I think, is disappointing. On the whole, though, I try to look at this big picture. They're 20-9 overall. They're 12-6 in the Big Ten. They're gonna get a double bye, not a triple bye, so they're not a top 4 team. That's an awfully difficult thing to do, but they've put themselves in a good spot. And I think the thing about this whole team in general that can be so maddening, as it often is in college basketball, is when you see their ceiling, when you see how well they're capable of shooting. Braden Carrington just made 9 threes. Obviously, that's a one-man wrecking crew right now. But in general, they've had some outstanding shooting performances. They've beaten Michigan at Michigan's best win in college basketball. Then you go see what they do in games like Oregon, for example. You just don't necessarily know what you're going to get each night. But I think they've positioned themselves NCAA tournament seeding-wise to potentially be a 6 or a 7. And they're going to have to continue to win here. You can't lose to Maryland and then Purdue and then lose on Thursday. If you do that, you're sliding into that 8-9 range. And it's all you want to do is be in the NCAA tournament. But if you have the choice, you don't want to be on that 8-9 line because it's a toss-up in the first game. And then you got to play a 1 seed in the second game. And I feel like if you can get away from having to play Michigan again, or Duke, or Arizona, 3 teams that only have 2 losses. Basically every other team other than Miami, Ohio, which hasn't gotten any credit whatsoever. That's a different story. They're undefeated, or they had been, and people were like, should they be a tournament team? Ridiculous. They ought to be. But you want to get away from playing those elite level teams, and I think Wisconsin has a chance to be able to do that and potentially make some noise in the tournament.
What was more frustrating, this year's Oregon loss or last year's Oregon loss when they had the lead at home and then they sold down the stretch and just tripped all over themselves in the final minute or two? I mean, because after the Oregon game, I was in Indy. That game started at 11 p.m. local time when we were there for the Combine. And I watched the whole thing. And at the end, I'm like, oh, that's the most disappointing loss they've had to probably Oregon last year, when it was that Saturday afternoon game where they had it in hand and then they just let it go. I don't know that there's a real answer to that question. It was just more of an observation that now I'm wasting your time in this conversation. Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect. So you have a story with Greg and Isaac Gard. Tonight is senior night. We'll probably see a little bit of Isaac Gard, I would imagine. Tell us about that story and conversation with father and son. Zach was on Bill's show today, talking about how he remembers Isaac Gard being at shoot around however many years ago, and he was young, because Zach's been around forever too. So this is a senior night that's been a long time coming for Isaac Gard.
It certainly has. Yeah, that was a Badger Bites video episode that ran last Wednesday. Tonight is senior day, so he'll be one of the 4 seniors honored. The other 3 are transfer portal guys who've only been here for a year. Andrew Rohde, Nick Boyd, and Braden Carrington. But with Isaac Gard, it's special for Greg. And you could see the emotion in both of them in that video. I certainly, if you're not a Badger Connect subscriber, I maybe can't convince you to do so and join, but it was a really cool window and neat insight into their bond over basketball and what Wisconsin's program has meant to them. Isaac grew up obviously around this program. He would travel for games. He would get out of school during tournament time like every kid dreamed of, except that his dad was at the time an assistant coach. And so he got to experience this and sort of be the little brother of all those guys on the team. And it was never a foregone conclusion that he was going to ultimately be a player at Wisconsin. He started his college career at Madison College. After the semester, he transferred and was just a regular student his second semester, freshman year. He actually, his dad said, Greg said, he stormed the floor, Isaac did, when Wisconsin beat Purdue, that Chucky Hepburn game. The crazy game, that was when Isaac was a freshman and not even a member of the team. He was just a regular fan. So it's really kind of been a special opportunity for Isaac and been very helpful as a practice squad player. So yeah, it's a neat story for sure.
What's his role like, personally on the team? I guess I can't ask you to speak to personal dynamics, but is he a guy that, I guess I don't know what I'm asking. Is
I got
he
you.
someone who's very
Say no
vocal?
more.
Tell me. Okay. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, he's a scout team player. I mean, he came here as a walk-on. Walk-ons aren't going to be in the starting lineup or generally in the rotation. Sometimes you can emerge like a Jack Janicki, but for him, it's can you give the best look that you can to that starting group? And he talked about it too in this video, Isaac did. When he first got here and that the first year was a member of the team, he wasn't even at a level where he was on the court in practice as a scout teamer. He was sort of the last one on the roster. And over time, he's gotten stronger. He's gotten better. He's a very good shooter in the opportunities that he gets. And it's granted not going to be a lot. He's made 3 threes, I think, in his career, including a couple this season, late in games, certainly. But Greg said, we're going to miss him. We're going to miss the work ethic that he puts in. And obviously the look and that he gives the starting group and the respect that he's developed. Because again, this is someone who's stuck it out, who's been here this whole time and has consistently gotten better. So even though we don't see the scout team players on the court during games, they're tremendously valuable to what Wisconsin and any program can do, especially in an era now where there are 15 players on the roster. There used to be even more, but now that the roster has been restructured under the NCAA numbers with all these other sports, then I feel like those guys at the end are even more valuable.
Thank you. You did know exactly what I was asking. I don't know why I couldn't find the words. Lastly, you have a new Badger Bite up today, and it's nice that we chat on Wednesdays because we always have a new Badger Bite to talk about. But it seems like America, we're experiencing a little hockey craze right now. The Olympics sure were fun. Wisconsin's having a great year. They've had some big-time wins. So you were in the, what do they call it, the shooting room? I'm watching the video now. It looks like a padded room with some floodlights where you guys are just whistling pucks at a wall at a goal.
I will be honest, until a few weeks ago, I did not know this room even existed. It's in the hallway at the Kohl Center.
Looks very secret.
Next to where the media gathers and does interviews. But when I saw it, I was like, oh man, we got to do a video in this. It's a really cool setup. You can see it at Badger Connect right now. The video is up, but I went in there with defenseman Luke Osborne, who's a freshman. And it turns out he's one of the players who actually consistently uses this room, which is why we had him on there. It's essentially batting practice, like in baseball, but for hockey. So the puck shoots out. You can pick which side it shoots out, and then you try to hit each of the 4 corners. A light flashes, so you know where you're trying to hit. And then there's just little targets. So there's different colors, and the closest you get to the center, you get more points. But basically what it measures is accuracy, speed of your shot, and his average was 74.2 miles per hour. I wouldn't want to be on the other end of that. And then how quickly you get the puck off, which for him was like half a second. Obviously, this is the best of the best. He's a 4th-round NHL draft pick, as a lot of these Badgers players are. They're NHL draft picks. So it was a really cool window into something I didn't know much about.
It looks like the mix of like a Pop-A-Shot, like a rebounding machine that kicks to you, mixed with a golf simulator, mixed with it's a very cool video. I won't try to describe it. I'm short on words today. So just go watch it and subscribe to Jesse's work at Badger Connect as well. They've been just dumping content continuously, both on the camp and the swings and player interviews. You guys had Cooper Catalano on. It's been a very good couple of weeks of Badgers content. So go find them, specifically Jesse on all those platforms. Jesse, we will talk next week. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, last couple minutes here. We got a call. We got time to sneak him in. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
I got to say, I'm a little wounded.
I figured this would be Mississippi Drew. I said, oh, we only have about 2 minutes left in the show, not even? I bet this is Mississippi Drew.
It's just working out that way.
No, it's
That's
not.
all.
No, you act like you throw your phone in the air and it lands and it call you consistently call with 90 seconds left in our shows. This is what you do.
Okay, I will admit it's on purpose this time. I will admit that. I will go that far.
That's good. That's good
But-
humor. That's good, clean humor.
But I am wounded, though. I like the porch talk thing.
Oh, I like porch talk. But is it, you got to realize as an 8-year-old, that we talked about this like an hour ago, by the way, but more than an hour ago. But as a kid, that's not interesting. But when you're an adult, that's all you want to do. You just want to name drop and reminisce and talk about who lives where and who's doing what and who married who.
Yep. Or not even talk at all and just be like near a buddy, like fishing.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Then you just sit there and speak in grunts and
Yep. That's the way it should be.
You want a question? There's a question for you on the live stream. Would you like it?
Sure.
This is from Lee in Westby. Says, ask Drew if his truck started or if he needs help to get to work tomorrow.
Nope. We're running good. We're running mean and lean. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer.
Okay. Well, if that changes, and God knows with your vehicle, it could. Just you give Lee a call, okay? GMC Denali, all options available.
I will. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else?
No, not really. Just good show. Keep up the good work. Love you.
Thank you, Mississippi Drew. I love you as well. Really a nothing call, and still love you, mean it, Thomas. Still more substantive than just about Eddie Thomas and lacrosse call. Sorry, I had to. Mississippi Drew, and it triggers me, and it shouldn't. It's not even my show, but I come in at the end of Ebo's show over the line every morning around 9:20, 9:30. So I always listen to at least last segment because I'm getting ready to take over for Bill's show. And Goose Eggs, not Goose Eggs, he's on the live stream. Mississippi Drew consistently calls at like 9:58. Like he doesn't know what time it is. Like he doesn't know the show's about to end. Oh, I only got a minute? 5 o'clock. So again, I know I shouldn't care. It's not my show. It just bothers me. Enjoy the Badger game tonight. Senior night. We'll react to tomorrow. And it seems like we're getting good NFL stories every day with free agency now less than a week away. So we'll pick up on that tomorrow as well. Have a great night.